made it, y'all. I'm so excited for this here episode with my friends. So I'm gonna do this the right way before I dive into just like, oh my God, Kim and Peter are here. So welcome back, everybody, to another episode. This is Mrs. Pie, and we're talking unlocking human potential with two of the most amazing professionals that I know on these streets. Before we go further, I just want to make sure I say a huge shout out to everybody who's watching on the Facebook channel, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. And absolutely want to do a special shout out to those of you who are watching on Parade Deck Live TV. So hello, there's a community of 6.2 million subscribers over on those streets. So I just want to say hello and thank y'all for watching. And I'm looking at my side because I just want to make sure that we're rolling over there, and we are. So y'all, okay, so let me do this right. Kim Blue of K Blue Consulting is here to talk to us today, along with Peter Lapp, and he's the connector storyteller. And I think everyone pretty much knows, if you follow me, you know that I'm following them, because I'm literally diving into everything that you're doing. So today, I want to talk more about your businesses. I want to know what you guys are up to, as far as any valuable insights and strategies. And we talk a lot about culture and growth and, anything around people strategies. So we're from that kind of world. So I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of HR professionals or managers or talent acquisition leaders, but also business owners and entrepreneurs, and especially those who are in the military community who are trying to transition into, the private sector. So this is a great way, y'all, for you to get some, free advice before you're starting even your company. And what that would be, you're talking to people who are actually really successful at doing that. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you, Shirley.
So good to see you.
Man, so we go back a ways. So I was trying to think of like how to introduce you guys, because we go back a ways and it feels like it's been years, but it really has been this past summer, right?
That's it.
So
just the summer.
Yeah, just the summer. And we were part of a motley crew. You guys can find a lot of this content on the YouTube channel Streets under Mrs. Pie. And we were a part of a group called People Rising. And so we met through an amazing individual, Lenwood Ross, and he brought us together. And every week we would talk, we'd get these great topics, and we'd kind of, be thought leaders live, right? We shared all of the insight, all of our experience, and we were solving problems together with, basically anyone who wanted to come out and learn. And so pivoting to kind of where you are now, I wanted to check in with Kim. How are things going at K Blue Consulting?
Yeah, I want to hear that too.
So things with K Blue Consulting are going well. And I'm excited, Shelley, just for the space to be able to reconnect and talk openly about all things, business ownership, entrepreneurship, and just how the journey has been. So it's been amazing. A lot of learning is what I will say. And it's been real time where I've had to tap into creative spaces that I didn't know existed. I had to be intentional about saying yes to things that I did know and yes to things that I didn't know, and really being comfortable figuring it out and owning a lot of things, owning my discomfort, but then really prioritizing myself as a leader, which I learned is something that I wasn't really doing. I was relying on just sort of old ways of thinking, and I really needed to tap into, no, I got this, and asking questions and really getting intentional. And because of that, it's helped me get more clear on, these are the verticals that I want to focus on. This is the level of talent that I want to engage with. And we're not doing enough in some of these areas, and we need to be doing more. And where are the people that are doing that, so that I can not only cultivate the tribe that I'm in, but make new tribes, because it's not just one tribe, right? Now I know I need multiple tribes to be able to do this. So it is a solo endeavor, but it is never a solo community, right? Community is not a person of one. And so that's been my greatest takeaway over the last 4 or 5 months as I've dived into K Blue Consulting more deeply, right? And things I was sharing with you all when we were in our People Rising community. So lots of learning and a lot of gratitude for just not being the same woman I was 6 months ago. So that is how things are going. That's how things are going.
What a statement.
I don't know, Peter. If you can
Yeah, I'm kind of upset that you called on her first now.
forget it. I can't
Follow
go
that.
after that.
Well, Kim, I think you and I had a very similar summer because it has been wave after wave of realization and faith, which
Yes.
has been really, really fascinating. And I think it's interesting because I started my entrepreneurial career at 25. Really, I fell into it. I was by accident and grew really quickly. So, I mean, it's been 20 years between the time that I haven't had a team around me. And in 2020, I really walked away from my entrepreneurial career as in recruiting and staffing because recruiting is broken. And my business now is at the intersection of purpose and culture and storytelling to fix what's broken about recruiting, to help companies make authentic connections with the talent that they need well before they need it, so they can really have more natural relationships with their prospective talent and build pipelines and not have this frenetic transactional recruiting relationship that everybody hates. And it's been really challenging, but super fun. And I'm starting to get some really nice traction, with really great, had a really great client engagement that will continue into next year, which is super exciting. And but to touch on what Kim says is constantly the things that I have to learn. And what I realized is, the possibility of creating a company without anybody else, like and it's incredibly exciting. But the things that I'm learning I thought at the beginning it's gonna be so much easier this time. I've done this before. No, not easier, much harder, but much more fun and rewarding. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. And so I know that there's a lot, like I mentioned, there's a lot of individuals, especially within the veteran community, who are transitioning into private sector, but there are also a lot of members in the veteran community who are starting out a new business. And so I wanted to find out from you, as you're kind of, this is your space. And again, they're successful at it. A lot of times when I have people that come on the show, I try to remind everyone, like, these are folks who've been tried and true and have been at this for some time. So we're talking about what's happened over the past few months or 6 months or so, but they've been at it for a long, long time. Okay, so I just want to be clear that there is no easy way to do this. You actually have to know your space, know your expertise, you know what I mean, all of those things. So there's no shortcut. But I wondered if you guys could share what were some of the unexpected challenges over this past year, and how maybe how you've overcome, just to help motivate or encourage someone else who might be looking to shift into entrepreneurship. Maybe we'll go with you, Kim, and then Peter.
Sure thing. I love the fact that you opened up by saying, right, like you have to know your space. I think that's the thing that I admire the most about both of you, is like that you know your space, and that is something that is going to support you in the moments where things are less than ideal. So for me, one of the things that was really challenging was realizing how much you get used to some of those, what I refer to as creature comforts, when you may be aligned inside of an organization and there's departments that do all of the things that you need. And then stepping out on my own, really having to take a really good look at, okay, what am I actually doing? And what are the things that I even need to plan to outsource? Where am I going to get a resource? Is this something that I can build, buy, or borrow? Because if you are a team of one and you're managing your budget, you're looking at your resources, you then learn that really it is just you needing to do everything that a client or someone is asking you to do. And so that was challenging for me. I actually had to spend dedicated time, strategic time, thinking about, all right, where are my templates? What are the tools and platforms that I have access to? Where am I going to get the most bang for my buck, right? Is it Monday or is it a different project management software? Like where am I in my business to be able to do that? And then how do I want to be able to scale? And what's my year-over-year plan? Again, conversations that I had been in many times as a CHRO or an HR executive, but now owning it for myself and having to do it and realizing that there was a learning curve there, and humbling myself enough to go, all right, So there's a learning curve. You've been doing this for 15 years, Kim, right? Right? You can take right 15 days and spend some time figuring out what this looks like. And that was it. And the faster I got comfortable in my head, humbling myself, the more quickly I was able to get myself into spaces where I was saying, okay, this meets the need that I have now and will allow me to grow and will serve what it is that I have going on. And where I didn't have it, ask smart people like Peter. Like Peter legitimately, we were having a conversation about AI one day, and Peter was like, happy when you're ready to talk to
he taught me all about, Peter introduced me to Chat GPT, which is, I call him Sean. Sean is Chat GPT.
Oh my God.
So
y'all, let me tell y'all about Peter and just the things that he knows that I don't, and how in our last conversation, I was just head nodding and scribbling furious notes to make sure that I didn't, because you have to learn to lean on and that's what I mean. It's not just your tribe. You have to create new tribes, right? Because what your knowledge is what it is. And that helps someone else. And Peter was able to help me get comfortable saying, if I want to be able to save time and leverage things, I absolutely have to be leveraging these resources that are out here. So for me, that was the biggest difference, is not having access to all of those smart people who did those things and becoming the person who now assembled those things for myself.
Wow, that is awesome. How about you, Peter?
Wow. Yeah. So I think really liking what you're saying, Kim, about knowing who your people are. And on the flip side of that is also knowing what your business really is. And and you'd think that's an easy question, but it's not. And I remember, and I'm forgetting his name, but he was the founder of Legal Seafood, and he was just getting started, and he took a business class, and the professor said, you have to know what business you're in. Do you know what business you're in? He's like, I'm in the restaurant business. And he's like, no. Think about it and come back. And finally realized, no, I'm in the business of making sure that seafood is fresh. Yeah. And that was the basis of that business. It was a supply chain business. The restaurant business was the end result of that. And honestly, I'm still figuring that out, which is really interesting. And so learning to know that I don't know. And I know that, but it is, so I am selling recruitment transformation because that's where my pedigree is. But my passion is really flattening hierarchies and allowing companies to be more human. And so it was a really interesting conundrum for me, because I was working with a client doing and it was a pretty large private equity backed co-location company. And they had some things that they wanted to look at. They had some turnover challenges and recruiting challenges. And I did a cultural analysis where I interviewed 30 people, 15 from corporate and 15 from their co-location services. And what was really clear is they definitely could use and benefit from my recruiting consulting, but it wasn't the biggest problem they had. And so learning to be able to say, or what business am I really in? Well, the recruiting business is a tool for me to help organizations be more human, and there were better opportunities. So it was a really interesting thing when my client sponsor said, like, I need an estimate for the next step of your recruiting business. And for me to say, I don't think that's what you need the most. And to propose something totally different. And to know that I have the trust of that client to be able to take that step. There'll be plenty of time for the recruiting transformation, but being able to solve these more core problems and help their executive team with their strategic initiatives and develop the narrative that they need to be successful with that and to speak to their employees' most pressing concerns is really the best opportunity. So that for me has been the real lesson, is to be cognizant of the business that I'm really in and look to provide value there first and foremost.
Can I pull on the thread a little bit about developing the trust with your client? And so there is a comment I just want to read out really quickly. Learning to get out of your own way by removing pride is important. And that is true. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely agree. So I want to get your take when you're thinking about building trust with your clients. And so, a lot of times, when I see the new businesses that pop up, the tendency is to rush into selling the business, right? Before the relationship building in order to build trust with those potential clients. And I wonder if both of you could just share your insights on what does that mean for you as you're working with your clients. How do you manage that so that you're building trust with your clients? What does that look like for you? So I'll hit Kim, and then we'll go to Peter.
For me, it's everything, because number one, I'm an HR consultant. And so when I think about the business that I'm in, I also have to think about how historically human resources has been defined and experienced, and how it's been sort of marginalized inside of organizations. And so the minute I tell them that I'm an HR consultant, they forget how dope Kim Blue is. None of that matters, right?
Yeah.
It is that she's here. And so now the who I am and the what I do become one singular thing. And so in order for them to trust that the HR is an extension of my expertise, I have to tell them what my approach is. And in order to do that, I just want them to get to know me, right? And so I talk a lot about things like, right, I'm a conversationalist, I'm a thought partner. I really want to help you think about how to help your business be successful. I say things like, my job is to help you get to yes, or to help you understand why it is a no, and then find a solution. I get away from process, policy, tech, even though that's going to be my vehicle to getting what we do. But then once they get to understand, number one, that I know how to connect with people, and number two, that I can understand how quickly they are experiencing challenges and what are some of the things that I've seen in my role, that then helps them relax. And it's all right. It's about connecting on a human level. So let me tell you about who I am. And it's also like, what am I doing to help them see that they're talking to Kim first? Then through talking to Kim, they can tap on Kim's shoulder and say, well, what are your ideas, or what have you seen, or what did you do when? Because now they're just having a conversation with me, not talking to their strategic HR partner, which is who I am. But that's different than what I do. Well, that's what I do, but that's different than who I am. Kim is a mom, a soccer mom, a dog mom, right? I'm a daughter, I'm a Southerner, I'm a sports fan, all of those things first. So the minute I humanize it, it evens the energy, it evens the playing field, and I don't feel like I'm now fighting against the tide, right? I'm swimming with them. And I think that that's what helps them relax a little bit and go, okay, she's not going to come in here trying to change what it is that I do. Quite the opposite. I actually want to support what you do and see you win. It just starts with you understanding who I am as a person first. And so I lead from that place and state up front, right? I give it freely, and it's yours to do what you want with. And then sometimes people aren't expecting that when I say that, and they're like, oh, okay. And I said, it's yours, right? Absolutely being more human. And I lead. More human. Yep, I lead from that.
I love that.
And I think, Kim, that is the demand of this time. And I was thinking about it today. Like, I don't think we have any idea the change is coming. And it's coming from so many sides. And I just got to just take a little diversion on that, be more human. Because if you look at what has happened to many of us, and I think the change that I'm talking about I went through is, coming into 2020, I knew recruiting was broken. And as a recruiter, I was part of the problem. And I had been coming to that realization for a number of years, but I had this expectation of a big payout and all these things. And the beginning of 2020, I was like, I am never going to get to this big payout. Because I hate this business and I am not proud. And I love that you talk about proud, inspired, empowered, as opposed to pride, which is,
that's right,
as our friend pointed out, very, very different. But I was not proud of the work I was doing, and it was killing me. And so, December 2020, with everything that was going on, it became impossible for me to continue, and made it really easy to walk away. But the world has seen that. This is not just a individual experience where I realized by myself that I was living an unsustainable life. The entire planet is realizing that. And it is coming from multiple sides. We've seen the hottest summer on record, where the world is literally on fire. The amount of war, the amount of death that we've seen right in front of us, it is impossible for us to continue as business as usual. And what's more is we have technology that is evolving faster than we can imagine, and we cannot we cannot foresee what the world will look like. So you have this desire from people, particularly in the workplace, where they're demanding meaning and agency. They want to know their work makes a difference, and they want to know that they have a say in how they apply their efforts to making that difference. And that demand is getting louder and louder. And I don't think the world is ready for that. And I'm not ready for it. And I am actively trying to help companies make that change, which is fascinating. So I think we are when we look at how do we have our clients trust us, there is a degree of humility that I think that we need to be able to bring forward. And in order to be effective, really questioning the methods that I might have used 3 years ago to apply to it's not going to work anymore. And so how do we have, and how do we think about technology to enable relationship rather than to supplant it? And particularly when it comes to recruiting, that's what we've done, right? We have machines who are reviewing resumes and doing an awful job at it, and it's producing a horrible result, and maybe getting 300 resumes for every opening is not the right way to do it. Maybe we need to use technology differently. So we get maybe 15 or 20 candidates, but they're the right candidates. And they're pulling that from a multiple of different factors. So I think it's true. That trust is that sense of humility and that recognition to realize that we don't know, but we can leverage what we do know to create what's next.
Yep.
Wow. So I was sitting here, I was thinking about those businesses, leaders, other organizations who might be watching, again, whether you're watching the live or the replay, or you're listening to this on one of the other audible streets in a couple of days. I was thinking about the amount of experience that both of you bring from both of your areas. And I was thinking, Kim, from the HR strategy perspective, and Peter, just everything that you're doing to really, when we say transform, like I'm not dropping it like a hashtag term, y'all. I mean, he's actually doing it in real life with real solutions. Okay. So I wanted to find out, in terms of those who might be watching, who want to work with you, what does that look like? What does maybe a typical client look like for you, and how do people go about getting to you as leaders who are trying to solve really big, complex problems? So Peter, maybe I'll go to you with this, and then we'll come back to Kim. What's the best way for clients to reach you, potential clients?
Yeah, so usually my website, truebearing.work, LinkedIn, I'm probably the only Peter Laughter on LinkedIn, I think. So
we'll get you the contact. Listen, we'll make sure everybody will get the contact, and y'all can reach me, so you can reach Peter. I'm gonna get you to him.
But I think it is really, I am in a quieter stage, so my engagements are really coming from previous clients who I've worked with before. I'm not really going out there. I've decided, because what I'm doing is so out there and new, I realized, if you don't know me, you're probably not going to buy from me. And there's only so many people I know. So I am really focusing on a speaking career, really talking about storytelling and connection and the brokenness of recruiting, because we think we use this simple process of buying stuff and we apply it to this immensely complex process of engaging with other human beings. And so we, in order to recruit effectively, we're going to need to be much more human and actually use technology to create conversations, which is not how people have thought it. There is
That's
a
right.
group that does all of the recruiting, and it's just a service. I need person. Okay, give me person. But that's not how life works. We spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our families in most situations. Right. I don't know about y'all, but when I wanted to get married, I did not call a broker and say, can you please set up 4 or 5 dates for me, and I'll pick one of them to spend the rest of my life with, or at least the next 40 hours a week until I can't stand it anymore. That's not how we did it. But that's how we think it's done. And so I recognize, this is going to take some time. So I'm really focusing on speaking first. And I have a few
Okay.
engagements that'll take me into next year, but I'm not being so loud with my business, but really talking about this problem and this need for the human connection in the workplace. And it was fascinating with this engagement. I could see it. This company grew really quickly. They went from about 10 data centers to 75 in very, very short
Wow.
period of time. And the people have been there for a long time. Like, I used to know everybody. I don't know anybody now. I just know the people I work with. And the other people are saying, like, I don't know anybody, and there's all these problems, and I don't know how to fix them. Well, and even in this situation, and this is a phenomenally well-run company, but it is human connection, what people crave. And how do we build that in a world of silos? The answers are not clear, and they're different for every company. So usually start with an analysis where I just find out what's going on. And more importantly, what are the stories that employees are telling? And how does that relate to stories that management wants to be told or trying to tell? And how do you bridge the gap between those two stories? What is the narrative that leadership needs to be talking about that will ride the momentum of what their employees are saying? That's the core of what I do. And fixing recruiting is really a way for me to get to that point. Yeah. So.
And you guys can probably tell Peter is a real speaker in real life. He's very, very inspiring. And also I wanted to just make sure that that there are articles that Peter posts on LinkedIn that I have no shame in reposting it for myself.
Do not be ashamed. I love your reposts.
It's awesome. It's just another way, if you're interested in learning, maybe you're in another function, another job, and you're thinking about shifting into a recruiting space, or maybe you think moving into a storytelling space, or even a future speaker. Peter his content is amazing for you to just go and learn kind of the state of the union, if you will, what's happening within this space. So I definitely highly encourage you, if you can't hire him as a speaker, then you definitely want to tag on to the content that he's already sharing for free. And again, continue your development that way. So that's another way you can tap into what the rest of us can't afford. Okay, let's follow
you and me
that
both.
Way.
Yeah, it's.
All right, Kim, over to you.
Yes. So Peter, before I jump in, do you have a core audience for, like, when you talk? I think that's important for anybody who's listening, in terms of whether it's them or, and now I say this because I've had a little access to you, right? So I think it's important to be able to know, like, to be able to share that. I know this, but like, share it with the people so they know it too.
The three groups that I'm most interested in talking to are professional service firms, accountants, lawyers, and consultants. Because a lot of what I do with connection really does help with professionals who, when they advance in their career, need to start to learn how to sell. And it's really, how do you build networks and connections, which is the beginning of sales. And so for an accountant, in order to succeed in their career at an accounting firm, they need to come to a point where they stop being a good accountant and become a good salesperson. And I think that's a bad formula. So, and I think, like, learn along the way, let's not, do this all at once. And maybe have a more diverse group of people who can become partners and start the process a little earlier. The second is later stage startups, companies that are at 30 and need to go to 100, or more often 100 who need to go to 300. But one of the things, a lot of what I do is anchoring storytelling in cultural messages like purpose and values. And so in talking to some of my venture capital, now that the private equity market is going to slow down for the next year and a half or so, I've been talking to some of my venture capitalist folks and really using things like purpose and values to create cohesion within a company. And so, because when you hit 30 people is usually when things get unruly. Is where people are, it's, we're all friends. We don't really need a lot of structures. And then suddenly things get completely crazy and no one knows. And so being able to have a set of understanding, this is who we are and where we're going, and this is what we value. And based on those values, these are the behaviors that are indicative of those values, and these are the behaviors that are counter to those values. And once you know that, then everything can, people, it's not just what the CEO likes or doesn't like, or the founders like, it's what we've all agreed to. Yeah, and that creates a cohesion that's very powerful going forward. So those are my core area people that I work with. But
Okay.
I think
Thank
we're
you
in a
for that.
world where people are desperate for meaning, and I think that
Yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
My larger goal is to create a movement of, because we've put up with, thank God it's Friday, this work-life balance lie that life and work are two separate things. Yeah, no, and I think now is the demand where like, no, our work can be enjoyable and should be enjoyable. Yeah, and it must be enjoyable because life is way too short to spend the majority of your waking hours doing something that you don't love.
Agree.
Yeah.
I thought that was important, Peter, because
Yeah.
I like Shelley and I have had some exposure to your work, but those listening might not know that. So I thought it was important.
I really appreciate that. And
Yeah,
if I could just say, in New York, we have a phrase called mensch, which means a great person. And y'all are both like just incredible human beings. And I am honored to know you. Shelley, you are a ruthless supporter of the people in your network. And that comes across in ways that are really obvious and ways that are really subtle. And I'm just so amazed and really honored to be talking with both of you.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, don't make me fog up my glasses.
Yeah. But I will answer your question, Shelley, but I thought that was important because we knew, but like they might not know. And there may be people who after this might say, I can benefit from having a conversation depending on where they are. So where people can find me. So website is under construction right now. So I can share that with Shelley later. But right now, mostly people can find me on LinkedIn. I've got, I share a lot of good things that I'm doing, people in my network are doing in the HR community. I also sit on the Forbes HR Council. I am a contributor. And so I write and contribute there. And this is the season now where I do most of my writing. I kind of pull out in the summer because I'm wearing my parent hat. And so I don't do as much writing. But now that it's fall and I'm back in the routine, I will write primarily during the school year. And so I try to get something up once a month. So you can go and find me there. All of my past posts for Forbes are on my LinkedIn page as well.
And they're good, solid read that you can copy paste and make sure you give Kim credit because I do that as well.
Yes. And those are the spaces that I'm really curating until my website gets, my website is officially revamped, but all of my podcasts, all of the things that I've done, all of it is there or it is on LinkedIn, and I make sure that I keep up with that information. And then from time to time, I'm frequently just going in and commenting for reach, liking for reach, and just supporting across the HR community, the org development community, the IO Psych community, certainly in the business world as well. Groups that I support, so obviously in intact HR teams to come in and do that. I am currently a fractional CHRO, so I can go in for 1 day or 1 year or whatever it is that is really needed. I'm also doing a lot of direct advising or support for founders and CEOs who are in the startup space. So right now, early stage is where I am. So folks who are in pre-seed or seed and saying, let's spend the time now focusing on getting your organization right, especially at the top, because once the top is set, when you're writing investor memos and when you're telling your story, it's not just the revenue story anymore, it's the people story. In particular, companies who are backed by private equity firms. And this is something Peter and I share in common, coming from that VC PE space, right? Companies and PE firms are not just having the financial conversation. They are getting more into the culture space and looking at who are we hiring, because the who leads to the productivity, the innovation, and that is what's going to help companies stand out and make their individual brand unique, because it's really about the bottom line in some instances. And so if you're not bringing in the talent that's going to specialize in that, then they're not going to see the return on their investment. Trying to get that through a founder's head early is really important, because they typically are focused on the product, right? The outcome, the revenue. And I'm saying, if you don't have the right people, your product is not going to matter, right? Let's really spend the time getting your org dynamics in order so that your org health is later, so that by the time you go from pre-seed to seed, from seed to A to B, and you're ready to get to someone like a Peter, you've done the legwork, right? And then by the time you decide you're going to do whatever is next, whether you're going to remain private, whether you're going to join the SPAC community, whether you're going to full stop IPO. Listen, folks, I don't know who's paying attention, but the whole, was it Instacart who just did their IPO, right? Like, That was a massive story. And there was a lot of learnings in there, both from a culture standpoint and
That's
a
right.
timing standpoint. It's very important to have a community around you of folks who are advising you the right way. And so I try to bring that into the space, the business of people and organizational values, right? Like, what do you want to do? And do we have the right infrastructure to do it? And I think it can be wildly undervalued because the narrative has not been that for so long. But Peter said it, right? Everything we did yesterday is not what we can do going forward. You cannot keep thinking that 5 years ago, because 5 years ago we weren't in a pandemic, right? And so we now have to change the way that we think in order to be successful, because workforce of the future is exactly that. And the future is not known or predictable. So that is where I spend my time, and helping people redefine what HR partnership looks like, so that it is whatever you need for your business in terms of people strategy. So that's where I spend my time and what I'm doing with it.
I feel like we need to, I'm going to have y'all come back at the beginning of the year to cover purpose and value and dig a little bit deeper and really touch on the human component, especially after the holidays when, we get all giddy about kicking off a new year and businesses are trying to go in with, new principles and trying to set things. I really think there's an opportunity to coach a lot of not just leaders, but regular folks who are listening, folks who are, people managers, hiring managers, analysts, admins, whatever the role is within the organization. But I really do think we need to have that conversation, because Peter hit on the point about the importance of having those clearly defined and communicated purpose and values. And, we used to say mission statement. We don't even use that anymore. But I think it'd be really good to come in and talk about, like, what do you do when your organization hands that to you, and how do you kind of live that life? Because you're right, there really isn't a separation of a work-life balance. It's just kind of
life.
It's just life. Yeah. We're just lifing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that, Jelly, because Peter's work or former work, right, in recruitment is the story. It's the selling of the story of the company.
Yes.
And if you don't have a mission or a purpose, what are you selling? Like, how are people feeling connected to something, right? And I'm Peter, please, because and so then they get into me, right? They get into the organization, they look around like, how did I get here? And then they want their CHRO to like save them with programs or initiatives or things like that. And so begins the cycle of things that you heard Peter speak about earlier. So
exactly. And because we know how HR works and the initiatives are going to roll out for Q1 2024, we want to get ahead of it.
Yeah. Well, and that's it, because it causes this thing where people, and I really love it, Shelley, that you're working with early stage founders to figure some of these things out, because I think culture has for a long time been something by default. It's just what happens, as opposed to something that people are conscious of and moving, in that direction. From the beginning. And I think, we run the risk is when we hear this dissatisfaction of employees to do things like, let's just give them foosball tables and ping pongs and happy hours. And no, that is not culture. That is not culture. It is shared belief and meaning and an understanding of what is tolerated, what is not tolerated, and what is celebrated. And if that's not agreed upon, you're in a world of trouble. It's not gonna work. And I think that is really the excitement of our time, is we face this really incredible unknown of what is going to happen when in the next couple of years with technology, with society. But I think we have a chance of actually really getting the world that we want. And that's what's really exciting. And it really starts with how it is we earn our daily bread. And if we can learn to have meaning there and learn how to collaborate, and within those spaces, we'll bring it everywhere else. Will be a demand for it. No.
Absolutely agree. So I have one more question before I let you guys go, and my question is, what do you want to be remembered for? It's my Barbara Walters question.
That's massive, Shelley, right? Like,
my father-in-law was part of the team that invented scratch-off lottery tickets. They
What?
didn't patent it. Yeah, he was. He did it trying to sell gas for Exxon, because how do you distinguish one gas station for the others? He was in promotional marketing, and but he didn't patent that final scratch off. Which he had created because people were X-raying the lottery tickets. And so he needed a material could scratch off, but he didn't demand to own the intellectual property. So he birthed this $1 billion industry. And my wife and my brother didn't really understand. I was like, do you know what your father's accomplished? Like billions and billions of dollars have been created just because of his idea, which I think is, but I've always held that. But I think for me, it's not a thing. If I could be part of, I wouldn't want to be known, but I'd necessarily known like, oh, Peter did that. But to have my daughter tell her children, your grandfather helped dismantle the way corporations run and made them more human, and enabled people from all over the organization to quickly rise to the top, and be more mobile. That would make me, that would be a legacy I could be really proud of. Yeah.
I love that. And, in similar fashion, right? I think one of the things that I'm passionate about is changing the narrative about how human resources is defined, and emphasis on that first word. We're humans first, who then bring our resources, our gift, our knowledge, our capabilities, our skill sets to your organization to partner with you on doing that. And so same, when my kid grows up, I want, people to say, your mom wrote an article that helped me redefine the way that, I look at things, right? And if you can see it back there, but I was on the cover of a magazine for a company that I do some advising for. And one day he was like, Mom, are you famous? And I was like, well, I'm not famous. I said, but I am known for the work that I do in the places that I want to be known. And that is super important to me, to be able to connect and do this. And so if what I'm doing today impacts the future of the world that he will work in later, then that's my legacy. And for him to know that that's what Mom spent her life doing, was making it so that I can step into work and use my voice and be authentic and not be afraid and command my equity in whatever form that may come in, right? Pay, experience, whatever that looks like, right? So if that happens during my time, then my legacy is solidified.
Well, you're both famous, so let me just put it out there right now for those of y'all who are watching and listening. They're already there. They're being coy. I will brag on my friends all day long. I am so honored. This was so amazing. I definitely want to have us come back and have a conversation at the top of the year to kind of get things going. I think it's going to help a lot of people. And I do want to say a quick thank you. I'm sorry, I just turned my head to the TV, but a quick shout out and thank you to those who are watching on Parade Deck live TV channel right now. And for all of y'all who are going to watch the replay, and also the folks who are going to get to listen to y'all on Audible and Spotify and iHeartRadio and iTunes. I'm missing a bunch of them. I'm terrible. My road manager's going to get me because I always forget. But, there's a lot of people who are going to benefit from just the jewels that you shared willingly tonight. And I genuinely appreciate it. A lot of experts don't show up and show you their heart. But I think if you are willing to learn, then whoever is listening and watching, you'll pick up on some really cool things tonight. It's really going to help your career, regardless of where you are, whether you're a leader, an HR leader, a CEO, a COO, or you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you're not an entrepreneur and you're just thinking about how you can expand your own learning. But Kim and Peter are your people. I'm just telling you right now, they are actually famous. So, but they're my friends. That's how it works. Y'all.
Talk to you anytime. You just get time and place. You just let me know and I'll be there.
I love it. This was so good. Don't hang up. We're going to have our after party. It's not a Beyonce concert, but it's close. So don't hang up. Y'all, we'll tell everybody to have a really good night. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back next week. Thank y'all.